Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. You got that down? You figured it out? So you're living it every day, right? Every moment of every day? Well, if you are, then I want you to come up here, and I'm going to sit over there because we're learning it, right? And so as God's people who are following the King of Kings, he's the King of love. And he's helping us in these green pastures to learn, not just religiously what love means, but what it means to genuinely be loved by him and to love others. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of thought. It takes a lot of trying to figure it out together. And so together we learn, we're formed by him to have hearts that move like his, that have the beat of his compassion and love. And then, as we do that, we do it in community together. And that means that we learn what it means to take care of each other. The third piece, he says, I will place shepherds over them who will tend them, and they will no longer be afraid or terrified, nor will anybody be missing. Now, I thought if he's the king and he's all powerful, then he should just be able to do all that, right? So why the thing about other shepherds? Because that's the way our king does things. He anoints other people to be leaders within the community, to take responsibility for leading, shepherding others. Do you remember Pentecost and the flames of fire came down from the Holy Spirit? Now, who did they land on? I mean, I would have thought they'd just land on the apostles, right? Those are the holy guys, except for Peter. He kind of screwed up a little bit. But in general, you'd think that it would just be these holy guys. But that's not what the text says. The text says that the flames of fire, individual flames, came down on everybody. Everybody anointed with the Holy Spirit to be involved in his kingdom. And so here's a test for leadership. Are you a leader? Here's a test for leadership. You're here and you can breathe. If you can fill those two qualifications, you're a leader. You're a leader. The question is where we're leading people to. What values and what kingdom? Jesus is inviting us to be a part of his kingdom and to be leaders in his kingdom because the world is craving leaders who have been formed in green pastures, who have an identity and a unity and things that really matter, and who genuinely take the time to learn and to care, people who are under their responsibility. Some people have responsibility for lots of people. Other people have responsibility for just a few. But we're all called to be leaders, to step in, to allow this king of ours to be represented in a world where people wander and people are lost and they don't know the answers to some really difficult questions. There's a book that I continue to think about, and it's the biography of Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. And early in his life, he talks about his experience with the church. And so I just want to read this part to you. Even though they were not fervent about their faith, Steve Jobs' parents wanted him to have a religious upbringing. So they took him to the Lutheran church most Sundays. That came to an end when he was 13. In July 1968, Life magazine published a shocking cover showing a pair of starving children in Biafra. Jobs took it to Sunday school and confronted the church's pastor. He said, "If I raise my finger, will God know which one I'm going to raise even before I do it?" The pastor answered, "Yes, God knows everything." Then Jobs pulled out the Life cover and asked, "Well, does God know about this? And what's going to happen to those children?" "Steve, I know you don't understand this, but yes, God knows about that." Jobs announced that he didn't want to have anything to do with worshiping such a God, and he never went back to church. He did, however, spend years studying and trying to practice the tenets of Zen Buddhism. Reflecting later on his spiritual feelings, he said that religion was at its best when it emphasized religious experiences or spiritual experiences rather than received dogma. He said, quote, "The juice goes out of Christianity when it becomes too based on faith rather than on living like Jesus or seeing the world as Jesus saw it." Boy, that's a great little picture to sit with, isn't it? So this 13-year-old who's asking a really profound question. So here are these kids who are suffering beyond anything that we can imagine. Is there a God? What kind of God is there? And what is that God doing about them? That's a great question. Profound, isn't it? One that everyone needs to wrestle with. And then the question comes back to us is, so who were the leaders speaking to 13-year-old Steve Jobs? Now, I don't know anything about the pastor. I know just what we've just read. I don't know anything about him, and I'm assuming he's a great guy doing everything that he could. But where were the other people? Where were the people who had credibility in Steve Jobs' life to be able to come alongside him and to be able to help him think those things through and to support him? Where were the people who could introduce him to missions and to being involved in the lives of people who were going through hard times, and to be able to see people who were in the midst of the battle in this broken world, to be able to bring compassion and relief to folks who are going through hard times? Where were the people who were able to talk about missions and mission agencies in Biafra who were putting their lives on the line in order to support what was going on there? He said, remember, the juice goes out of Christianity when it becomes too based on faith rather than on living like Jesus or seeing the world as Jesus saw it. Now, I'll say to you that I believe that what we believe, faith, doctrine, I think is critically important, but faith without works is dead, right? And so the community of people who are leaders, who are able to look at the world around them with the eyes that Jesus used, and to do their best, very fumblingly often in this world, to do the things that Jesus did, and to recognize that we need everybody, including 13-year-olds, to step into leadership and help us. There's nothing that satisfies our hearts so much as to follow good and honest leaders into green pastures where we're fed and nourished and can grow, and where all questions are on the table. nothing more satisfying than that. So, this is Christ the King Sunday. So we confess that it's not global warming or nuclear war that's going to end the world, although those are important issues for us to be involved in and talking about. But we confess that the end of the world comes as Christ himself is enthroned as King of Kings and as Lord of Lords, and that each day then we look to him to be able to stand united as his people, to be able to be formed in his luscious bounty, and to take up the mantle of leadership for a world that so craves direction and purpose. It's a big Sunday. It's a big Sunday. Big claims for us, but it's at the heart of who we are. It gives us purpose and focus, and it raises us up as celebrators for the joy that has been given to us in his kingdom. So let's stand together and affirm our faith and look to him as he blesses us.